Okay, my name's Andrew Zebron III, and I'm here with Alexei Novitzky. And he's a pretty interesting guy who's lectured at the museum, at the National Museum of American History. And let's hear what he has to say today.
Hi guys, how's it going? Well, just a quick background about myself. I guess I was born in Cape Town, South Africa, 1984 during the apartheid revolution. And so we decided to move to the States where it was safe. People didn't worry so much about, things like racism, materialism, more freedom. But basically, moved here when I was 2, grew up in Oklahoma. Then, but basically I've been learning in my dreams my entire life. That's kind of an important part to this whole thing. So I'll just go ahead and start there. The very first time I rode a bicycle was in my dreams. And I woke up and I went straight to my brother and I said, I know how to ride a bike, right? And I had training wheels on my bicycle at the time. I was 5, my brother's either 6 or 7 at the time, and he somehow knows how to take training wheels off of a bicycle, right? So then basically he took my training wheels off for me and I just hopped on my bike and rode in circles in the garage by myself, right? So I've been learning in my dreams my entire life, just waking up, kind of knowing how to do things. And because of that, I've always known that telekinesis, clairvoyance, and all those remote viewing. You mentioned you took a class on that. All those things are very, very real.
They are.
Right. And you can develop them over time, right?
Yeah.
And so I started developing at a young age, started practicing meditation. I got a hold of one of Uri Geller's books. At the age of 10, I had one of Uri Geller's packets, and it had a little deck of different colored cards in it, and then a crystal dowsing string, things like that. And so I practiced meditation my entire life. I'm now 36. And when I went to college, I wanted to basically prove to people that these things are real through science. And so I studied astrophysics, physics, planetary science, and astronomy. I have my bachelor's degrees in those from the University of Colorado. And then I got my master's degree in mechanical engineering. Before I graduated college, I invented a skateboard, which is, fully basically put together here. We can go into that a little bit later, but just kind of doing a quick intro, right? And then it's been writing these books on because I've been meditating and I've been wanting to explain things like telekinesis, clairvoyance, and even the UFO phenomenon. I started writing my books, right? And a lot of the stuff has come from very intense meditations where I'll have very vivid visions, and basically, I just see the answers to everything. And so, yeah, I have a series of books, and yeah, that's pretty much the intro there,
So you got some drawings you wanted to show people too, right? Some slides?
Definitely. We can go through those probably towards the end. I think it'd probably make more sense before we look at those drawings I was just showing you, if people have an idea of kind of what's going on. And so I guess I'll just go ahead and start, with the first book. This one's called Your Influence in Space. And basically I wrote this one in 2014. Is this a synchronicity for you here?
Because at 9 years old, I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey and found out that we weren't from here.
Right. That's funny. Well, this one basically, it just says that your body's light encompasses the entire universe. And what that means in short is that there exists a relative frame of motion where your light is already at the edge of the universe. I'm not saying it's the one that we exist in. I'm just saying that there does exist one. And in that relative frame of motion, your light would be so stretched out near infinity that it would have very little influence. But still, your light does exist at the edge of the universe, right? And at least one or more relativistic reference frames. So that's basically like the first clue that lets us know that the speed of light might not be a limitation of reality, but more of a limitation of human perception. And so the very first thing we do in this book is we go through the human senses, and we talk about the sense of touch, taste, feel, smell, and how they all have different electromagnetic energies that they can pick up upon. But then we kind of switch over and we talk about, we freeze at a point and we say, before we had eyes, right? Here's a thought experiment. I'm gonna ask you this, I guess, as you know, imagine we didn't evolve with eyes, right? We only had sound, touch, taste, smell, and and we had ears. We could still hear. What do you think would be the fastest speed as far as travel or movement?
Oh, pretty slow. Wait a minute. Um, I hear there's people using masks, sleep masks to drive now. They put them on and they can see. You hear about that?
Yeah. So that's already that skips the senses. Now we've jumped out of our body and we're remote viewing things. Yeah. I was actually talking about that with Grant Cameron and Desta before on a different show.
That's where
But
I saw it. And coincidentally, after I saw it, I'm in a group called Connecting Consciousness, and it's run by Simon Parks. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but probably not. Well, anyways, I asked Simon about this, how if he knows about kids driving with covered their eyes, totally covered. And he said, yeah, expect things like that to come. And he takes questions from group members, but there's 80,000 of us. And I was shocked to have my question picked, and he gave such a great answer. And then even crazier things happened after that on 8/8. I went home after a UFO event, where a CE5 event where we were going to bring in UFOs, but none showed up. Not even the moon came out. Well, anyways, on the way home, I didn't want to hit any deer or anything. So I went like this. I said, I don't want to hit you. I'm just traveling through the area. And as soon as I did that, bang, there was a buck standing in the ditch, facing
yeah,
the same direction I was going. And then a couple miles later, I did it again, and there was a doe crossing the road, and she turned around and looked back at me. And she got to the other side. And then it happened again on another night. A deer was standing in the same area where I saw these other ones. He was standing on a lawn with his leg up in the air. And then I thought, that's a statue, right? And then as I went by, he turned his head and followed me. And I saw the shine in his eye. And then it kept happening. I saw a weasel even. A weasel came out and crossed the road in front of me. But he stopped to make sure I saw him first. And I've never
right.
seen a weasel in the wild. Have you?
I'm not sure.
Well, anyways, those are the kind of things that I've been experiencing. And then there's even more. I could go on, but I'll let you talk.
Right. No, I mean we were going through the books just now, I guess. But did you want to keep going on that, or what were you thinking?
I do water prayers, and I did a water prayer one day in August down at Lake Erie at the mouth of 18 Mile Creek. And I grounded myself in the creek. I took my shoes off and I stood in the water. And after I did that, I said my prayer, and I said, if there's any important tools on this beach, lead me to them. And I not even a minute, I walked over, I found 2 stone tools made out of
Right.
flint. 2 stone tools, ancient stone tools. And then on the way home, I was on my kayak. I got a picture of a deer went to an island and was drinking water out of the creek. And it was in an area where I used to go. There's a Frank Lloyd Wright house there called Gray Cliff. And I used to go there when I was a little kid. I used to hang out there. My father was friends with somebody who was doing some work there and fixing it up. But it's a really famous house, and it's right in that same area. So, and then 3 fish came up to me, 3 garpike with their noses like this, 3 at a time. 3 of them came up to my kayak. I've had the weirdest animal encounters. Have you ever had any animal encounters like that?
Well, I guess, yeah, I mean, as far as animal encounters, I guess, that's where we're headed right now. Basically, I've always been very friendly with animals, right? So I can just walk up to any animal in the wild. If there's no one else around, right? Certain conditions, I can just walk up to any animal and basically pet it on the head. A good example of that was in Estes Park, Colorado. I was with one of my really good friends, and we were driving back, from Estes Park, and there's a herd of elk on the side of the road. And she doesn't want me to get out of the car or anything, but I was like, it's okay, don't worry about it. And so I got out of the car and just slowly walked towards the elk, and then I didn't end up petting it, but I got probably within 5-10 feet from it, hung out with the elk, and then walked back to the car. And I have photos of that entire event, you know. But yeah, I mean, animals are just part of nature, you know. I think what they feel more is what I always go to is that quantum flow that everybody walks around with them, you know. So if you have a lot of ego and a lot of like turbulence within you, they might feel an unnatural presence, and that might scare them off a little bit. But if you have that, you know, free flowing nature and no fear, then there's nothing to worry about, right?
Yeah, I think I nailed that a while back.
Very cool. Awesome.
All right, so what about your other book?
Well, so just to basically finish this one off, and so we talked about the human senses, there's limitations. You know, we have our range of intelligence, and because of that, we think we're so much smarter than earthworms. Well, hey, there's probably beings that are like a million times smarter than us, right? And so then it goes into the Doppler shift, and it basically says, this is a thought question for you, right? What would two particles of light that are accelerating at the speed of light look like to each other, right?
Points of light?
Yeah, like what does light look like to light?
That's a good question. I thought everything was made of light.
Well, ultimately, at the end of the day, everything's made out of a raw energy, right? And humans perceive either light or matter. But like, what I was getting at is that if you're a particle of light and you're traveling with a speed of a piece of light, that light will look like matter to you. It'll be frozen in space, and it'll only be shooting light off in one direction behind it. So that's like the first clue that kind of gives us an idea of what's going on. And that comes from this first book here. And then at the end of this one, we talk about canceling. So then we have a new definition for gravity in this one as well, where we say instead of gravity coming from the Earth, we say it comes from the outside stars, because either stars have their natural effect on a body or they don't. And with our models of gravity, we say that all the stars in existence have no effect on the Earth. What I'm saying is that every single star in existence has effect on the Earth, because from every point in space, there's that relative, you know, earlier in the book, we say that you exist everywhere in space. Basically, light has momentum. If you shine a powerful blue light at a piece of tinfoil, it jumps. So light has momentum, and everything exists everywhere in space. So in that book, I basically say that maybe gravity comes from that space preparation, and that you could potentially cancel gravity because it's basically just incoming energy. So if you use the right electromagnetic scaled waves, you could cancel gravity from existing. And then we term the light state, right? So that's the end of the first book. I rewrote it a little bit. This is the original. The new cover looks like this, so a little jazzier, right? But it's the same book. And then it goes into the liquid light state universe, right? Because now we know that the whole universe is made of liquid light, and that matter is manifesting at nodes from prepared space. So we say, well, hey, the universe is made of liquid light, and we introduce the mind, body, and spirit diagram, right? And so this shows, so if the universe is made of liquid light, basically you have a spot where you're naturally supposed to manifest, right? We live in this quantum reality with a whole bunch of potentialities, so multiple timelines. But every want, don't want, assumption, and expectation you hold true to you basically makes you pace about your golden spot, is what I call it. Like your natural node of manifestation could be called the golden spot. And when you have a thought, literally it'll make you pace about it. And so you have a pacing nature. And so in this book, we calculate the pacing nature associated with wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations, right?
Right.
And we also talk about how you can cancel gravity. In that sense, the location of matter is simply a result of incoming energy. You can actually make the node manifest over here instead of manifesting here. So there's basically a general light state to the universe, and you can alter where the nodes manifest. Based off of that concept, right, you can do electrogravitics, you can do gravitational lensing, geometrical shapes of dense material, like metamaterials. There's all kinds of ways to alter the node of manifestation. And that shows also that momentum comes from that incoming light state as space is preparing itself. But then at the end of this book, we basically say, well, hey, because there's this potentiality, right? The potentiality of wants, don't wants, we see that we're actually orbiting a greater structure, right? You could say that from feel, touch, taste, and smell, we know that we're orbiting an Earth. Then from sight, we know that we're orbiting the sun and we're orbiting a galaxy. But then with our sense of time, we say that, well, hey, maybe we're orbiting another structure because we're either on or in time. We're orbiting this structure of potentiality. So that introduces the book called The Crystal of Time, where we realize that there's habitable zones for human consciousness related to acceleration at light speed towards a greater center. At this point in the book, we don't realize that matter, that literally reality is being stretched into existence. We just say the moment of the Big Bang was when the universe collided with time. And we talk about the subatomic Goldilocks zone for a universe that exists within time. Right? Do you know about the Goldilocks zone for the solar system, that concept?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it has to do with like where water exists around a sun. That means that life can exist. So basically, what would be the habitable zone for matter around time, right? For a conscious being around time, what's that habitable zone related to? And this book basically says that it's related to acceleration towards center at light speed while flying tangential. So from this book, we actually realized that, well, hey, our universe collided with time and we're orbiting a greater structure with an acceleration towards center at light speed. And then that takes us basically into time atom, where we realize that there's a layering of conscious types that exist within that structure of orbiting universes. And each one of those orbiting universes relates to a harmonic ratio that's associated with your consciousness, right? Yeah, so from this one, basically, we learn how to make interdimensional technologies. And this is where the interdimensional telescope idea comes from, which is patent pending at this time, and I'm looking to build one. So it should be pretty cool. We can make an interdimensional. Do you have any questions about that real quick?
Well, I know someone who might be able to help you with that.
Okay.
We'd have to talk offline though.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have all the math worked out that I think I need, and I have a patent pending, and I'm looking for people to help me move it forward at this time.
I think I have a contact for you, Alexei. I really can't say much about it on air, but I'll let you know.
Very cool.
And how do we get those books?
Oh, well, I have them all on my website, loosheslabs.com.
Oh,
you
okay.
can right there, Looshes Labs.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be sure to put that link in the show notes.
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah. That'll help out, and then so then from this book, since we see that there's a layering of conscious types, basically after you pass away as well, it shows that you shift into the Noviverse realm, which is an 80 hertz center versus a 20 hertz center, right? So basically, I'll just do the quick rundown on that one, right? Our consciousness is tuned, our beta state is tuned to the 20 hertz center. And when people have the out-of-body experience or the near-death experience, their brain does the fast gamma state. The fast gamma is related to an 80 hertz center. And so all those are related to different orbits around the center of time. That's the easiest way to explain it. And by knowing the ratio, you're able to make interdimensional technologies. And so that takes us into this next book called The Fifth Dimension. And I'll show you, I think one of the coolest photos of the entire series comes from this book. And this is really what ties everything together now. So we just saw all that, and now we're tying it all together to make interdimensional technologies, okay? Basically what we have is a field of energy. So a singular field of energy, and then we have a perception. Our perception is orbiting a singular field of energy with an acceleration towards center at light speed while flying tangential. And so you can call this your now moment. And what you get is for every, let me see how to get this. The next page has a bigger picture. So for every single moment, this is happening, where you literally have energy crunching as you approach a spot and energy stretching. And then as everything reverts back to normal, energy crunches and stretches back again. And so what you see when it comes to matter manifesting within our conscious experience, it's literally blipping in and out of solidity because it's literally light being stretched away and matter being crunched to you, and then matter being crunched to you and light being stretched away. And so you have objects that are manifested from the denser orbits of experience and objects that are getting manifested from the less dense orbits of experience. And so when it comes to your perception within time, since we live in basically we live in a giant black hole, right? Because we have to be accelerating towards center of light speed, and that only occurs in black holes. You see that you have energy coming from the inner rings of perception, as well as energy coming from the outer rings of perception.
Mm.
So the energies from the inner and outer rings of perception add, and we have a tuning based off of our conscious antenna, right? And so if you have a 20, you only harmonize with 1, 2, 5, 10, and 20. But if you're at 80, you could add 40 and 80 to that. You can add steps. So what I'm getting at is that every harmonic has a certain frequency, a certain thing, like different waves and energies it can pick up on. And so basically you have a field of energy, and then you have the harmonization of your conscious antenna. And so that's which layer you're perceiving. Were you able to see that?
Yeah. Those are amazing illustrations, Alexei.
Thank you. Yeah, I do all that myself. I have a small engineering company I like to run. But yeah. And then so basically that's the fifth dimension. And it just shows that there's that layering of conscious types that exists within time. And now that we know that there's that stretch ratio, right? That's literally how matter is coming into our reality. Is it's being there's this, you could say, an accelerated reference frame warp factor, right? It's our warped factor that comes from the fifth dimension being perceived by a fourth dimension. You can make technologies that are basically the mirror image of that, right? And so if you wanted to make a pipe, literally, like, you get a pipe and now draw your pipe, but with that stretched warped factor, that becomes a pipe within the fifth dimension. And the important factor is to keep it always pointed towards the center of time, right? But just to kind of keep going through this book, because I think one really important part needs to come, I just need to talk about that real quick, would be the concept of the magic squares. Well, let me so before that, there is a lot of information here. Before that, basically, so if you're in this field of energy, which is, basically energy orbiting a black hole in a vortex, you basically have, I'm trying to get a quantum entanglement now real quick. So imagine a wave traveling through this energy, right? That's the easiest way to describe quantum entanglement, is that the wave would hit in different locations in the past and future, and it would also hit in different densities of time. And so quantum entanglement could be considered like sound waves traveling through the fifth dimension, is a good way to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I heard Robert Stanley say something once, that Lucifer, the angel, was going through a black hole and got infected by AI. That's his theory on where we're at right now.
That's pretty funny. No, I haven't heard about the AI part, but I get the whole, like, getting sucked into a black hole thing. I mean, if he was part of God, the bigger structure, the only way you get into the smaller universe is by getting sucked into a black hole. And now all of a sudden you're living in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really good research. I think he's onto something there, but how do you prove it?
I don't know. So I don't know if you can prove it. There's some things that might just be unprovable, right?
Yeah.
Like,
he has some pretty good videos out there, though. I like that guy.
yeah, I haven't seen that guy, but what I wanted to, I guess, end on with this book real quick is the concept of the magic square. And it shows how you can have a harmonious, imagine an empty space. You can have infinite creations within an empty space that are unobservable from our perception, is what I'm trying to explain here with this. And so the easiest way to explain that is with the concept of a magic square. And so this shows how there can be multiple dimensions within our perception that we just can't even see, but then also it gives us clues on how to make energetic vortices to experience them.
So if you can imagine, we're trying to see an object that's inside the center of this square.
Hmm.
But we're looking from the outside. And say our universe is, so our Earth is pretty much an 8, you could say, right? 8 hertz, the Schumann resonance, something similar to that.
Hmm.
So you could say that this is a 34, but if that was just an 8 and you changed all the numbers to equal 8 instead, from anyone looking at this structure, you wouldn't be able to see it because it would blend in as an 8. And it would be completely invisible to someone looking at it from the outside. But what could also be existing in there at the same time is you can continue to divide your square over and over and over and get basically more complex shapes that end up being harmonious with the universe, but still don't have an effect outside, right? And so you can ultimately map the entire universe and all manifestations like that as well through the concept of the magic square. And it shows how your consciousness is tuned to certain structures at different layers. So the magic square ends up being like super important for this whole thing. Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool. And then basically wrote a book of poetry to go with that. Right. So I've been meditating my entire life. This is kind of silly. I can do thumbs only, okay, but I wanted to do something where I wouldn't fall into the ocean. So figured I'd keep it simple.
That's funny.
Yeah, but do you want to hear a poem, I guess?
Sure.
All right. So this one I think is important. And I normally I'll end lectures that I do with this poem, because a lot of people nowadays are like really, really into social media. They're really into what I call instant gratification, right? And for something to really last and to like really fill your inner spirit, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years. You're going to have to put effort into it. You're going to have maybe lost it and then have wanted again, or hated it at one point and then ended up loving it. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So this one's called instant gratification. And so I'll just go ahead and read it real quick. To be instantly gratified is a new thing indeed. With phones and text, we all have new seed. Facebook and Twitter, Instagram too, all these things supposedly equal you. I saw your post. Oh, you're amazing. It's all a joke. The real man is blazing. He does not care for the instant like. He's without service on an epic hike. One that takes a while, maybe years to achieve. Instant gratification, he sees no reason to believe. To be gratified instantly might give you pleasure, no doubt, but as quickly as it came, it will run out with a shout. Like a flicker of fire, your praise has been delivered. Like a flicker of fire, your praise has been severed. Deeds that take a while surely pass the test. Spiritual gratification is what makes us feel best. These deeds are pure and gratification not instant. With no buttons or service, it comes when we listen. Our bodies have great service. Our minds are tethered in. Like our physical internet, we can all be tapped in. The universe is our internet, and our hearts are our like buttons. So show like to another as if they were your brother. True gratification and mental and spiritual ease is all at our fingertips and even cheaper than cheese. Simply walk your line and make your day's way, for instinct not natural to man's early day. So basically just some cool poems that have come from the philosophies and thinking, some on space-time, and yeah.
That was awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And then so basically after it ends up kind of being a thick and a whole bunch of books, right? So it's kind of like 343 pages, and so I ended up putting it into a hardback, right? And so this is called The Infinite Pool of Experience and Awareness, and this takes you literally step by step from modern accepted physics, to a very unique fifth dimensional view where we can have interdimensional technologies, and through the liquid light state universe, essentially. In the fifth dimension with time atom and the layers of reality and perception. And our universe isn't expanding. Our perception is being stretched as we interact with a field of energy. That's a more realistic view.
Definitely. I was just gonna say that that is so perfect. You could put that on a shirt, man.
Yeah. No, it's way more realistic. Like, because they just, oh, we're in the center of a universe that's expanding in all directions from every point in space. Or do we exist in a field of energy, and then we have a perception, and what we experience, right, is based off of our accelerative reference frame in relationship to a field of energy. That is the most raw way to think about it. And then everything comes from that when it comes to the human body in relationship to our experience. Yeah.
Wow. People are gonna love this video, I can tell. Man. So what else you got? What else?
Well, I mean, so basically, I've been learning in my dreams since I was a kid, right? And the second I heard that we can't go faster than the speed of light, I literally went to my professor and I was like, no, perception's why we can't go faster. Like, we think we can't. It's a magic trick. He just looks at me and says, I don't understand Einstein's equations. I was like, I understand the equations. The equations say we can, like, we can't go. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we can. His view is wrong. It's limited by, not that he's wrong, he's very intelligent, and that is how matter acts when it's in motion. Like, matter does become stretched, matter becomes heavier, time dilations exist, but it's not a limitation, right? It's a limitation to our dimension almost, or a limitation to our perception. So, because of all that, I've always had like this urge to almost help save Earth, right? From a very young age. And I got lucky, you could say, with my skateboard, right? I invented this before I graduated college, and they were all handmade. I handmade every single one of them for about 8 years, and then I spent 3.5 years getting the patent work done, and then I raised capital for 2.5 years to get the injection molding process done. And so I have them injected molded, but I do still pour the rubber grips in house. So these are cool different grips that you can put on them. But the point being is that since I do these lectures, I was in college. I got this designed. USF then connected me to the Smithsonian Institute, as well as the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So I started doing innovation events with them. And because I was out traveling and doing innovation events, I decided to turn my skateboard into a cartoon character. So he goes on adventures with me in cartoon form. And we promote things like innovation, education, and sustainability. And his name is Ollie the Skate Case. And this is the bigger coloring book. I have a smaller one that's the same size as those other books that fits inside the board. And basically, you can see, here he is riding his bike. Here he is painting. So it's very like positively driven, and very driven towards mind, body, and spirit as far as the entire connection. And it's good for your mind with the math associated with he has a card game, and like the STEM books that I'm also releasing that are associated with the STEM boards that are going to be coming out. They're like the technology boards. The easiest way to describe that is this would be the Earthly Explorer board. And so inside it's going to come with like a little magnifying lens, a book on the Earth and scientific views of it. And so the kids can skate around and explore Earth, right? So that would be the geology version. Then you have the astronomy version. So those are all going to be coming out. But the point being is that it's good for mind, body, and spirit. Mind with all of that stuff, body with the physical act of skating, and then spirit with the coloring book and cartoon series that always promotes, you could say, harmony, right? And one of the important things is like, there's a lot of cartoons out today that show right and wrong. Like there's always a bad guy in the cartoon. One thing I never really want to show, but sometimes you kind of have to, is a bad guy. Because people then create the delusion that we always exist in a place where there's a bad guy. And so basically from childhood, even in our cartoons that we're showing our kids, we're teaching kids subconsciously that there's just bad people everywhere. That no matter what, if there's 2 good guys, there's going to be 2 bad guys. And so it's always right and right. And that way wrong doesn't even have a fight. And I have a poem about that too in my book. That's like, it's called Baby. But so this is like your standard storage board that's good for kids. They can put all their toys in it. And then I have this one right here, which is more your adult board, right? And that's electric, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, Bluetooth remote, and then it has hub motors.
Wow. I could see those on campus.
Yeah. Yeah, they go fast. They go like 12 to 15 miles an hour. It will last for 8 to 10 miles. And then just so you can kind of get an idea what the rubber grips look like when I put them on there. Okay. And those are all customizable, and I hand pour the grips as well in-house. And so I'll do a signature. I have signature grips. Where I'll write like love in it backwards, and then you put it in a mirror and you can see it says love, you know. But so basically, you know, I use the skateboard as a tool to promote the message, right, of world peace, harmony, love, and ultimately trust. I think is the biggest thing. One of the biggest things or issues is trust, and then instilled delusion. So I really like to work. That's why I almost have a problem with the whole skate case coloring book thing, because it is teaching kids to like a cartoon character. So it is kind of instilling some type of like delusion, right? Like, but it's better than anything else that's out there right now, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of bad things out there.
Right.
We don't have to name them.
But yeah, I mean, so that's basically what I do. I like to work on windows and doors with my brother a lot as far as work. This was one of my babies. I spent about 3 years hand building that guy with like 2 other people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called
Oh.
the cubic yacht.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's an 84-foot long, 3-story tall stainless steel yacht. And so we have those for sale. They're on a website called mansionyachts.com. That's one of the things we're getting out there too, you know. So that's not like necessarily my, you know, that I assist with that project. Is, you know, clearly I'm, you know, that's not my baby. Maybe one of these days, but not today.
I'll start saving up, Alexei.
Yeah, no, I mean, I want to build a spaceship anyways. I mean, as far as like what I end up buying, it's going to be like a ship that goes to the moon, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I live close to Lake Erie, so I would like something like that.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I mean, basically from all this, you know, comes the whole explanation of UFOs. And I have had UFO encounters myself, growing up my entire life, basically. So I don't know. I mean, what would you say was one of the most interesting encounters you've had?
Well, my first one in 1980 was 5 or 6 encounters in a row. It wasn't just one. It was 5 or 6. And I gave a detailed thing of it, but at the end of on the last day, the UFO sent these probes, these orange probes down into the water, and there was little aliens in there. And I saw them with somebody else. And the person I saw them with is the one that saw the aliens. I wasn't brave enough to go up to the water. They went right up to the water, and they saw like an alien about this tall inside of the orange ball, like this big. And but they don't want to talk about it. And I want to honor that, you know. I don't want to drag someone into a national, because I could end up insanely famous over this, you know. I'm not saying I will, but she doesn't want to be named. So, but that was pretty crazy. Huh?
There's so many events that have occurred that people have just been so hesitant to talk about.
I know.
So, yeah, and I don't think anyone's trying to like become famous over it. You know, I think it's more of
No.
like a comforting thing. It's like,
No.
it's okay. It actually does exist. You're not the only one that's experienced some really, really wild stuff before.
Well, I asked her, she probably thought of Travis Walton or something and said no. You know, because that guy's had a rough life, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, are there any other ones you want to mention, or?
Well, I saw, I had 4 of them again in 2012. I saw 4 different ships, and one of them was super spooky. It was a black triangle, and it was flying in front of my truck. I was driving an SUV through a deserted part of New York called Alba, New York. It's known as the Mud Flats. They grow onions there, and it's just a flat, long area, and it's just a 2-lane road. You could do 65. I was doing 65 one night, and this black triangle pulls in front of me and it's just flying along with me for a couple miles.
Just hanging out.
And no sound, nothing.
Right.
It was about the size of a Cessna. It wasn't a huge one like people see. It was a small one. It was no bigger than a plane, a regular small light airplane. And it was just about 100 feet off the deck, about 80 feet in front of me. So I got a good look at it. And I was just like, whoa. And the person I was with at the time wasn't smart enough to get a photo of it, but it was at night and it was a black triangle. I don't know what the photo would have looked like, you know?
Right.
So what were your UFO encounters like?
Well, I mean, so that's where it's like, what I kind of, I guess, wanted to touch more like very vaguely before I speak on the first one. The more I think about it and the more that it gets revealed, right? So it does seem to have something to do with, you could say, spirituality or the afterlife or the other realms of existence through time. And well, I forget what I was getting at, but basically, you know, I've always learned in my dreams, right? Is the easiest way to put it. And so when I was about 9 or 10, I had a very, very, very vivid encounter, right? And when I have these types of visions, I can't even see the world in front of me. And I literally only see the vision, what I'm talking about, right? And so at this moment of my meditation, it was literally gray being, boom. It looks like he's in half of a nutshell. So the bottom, it's like basically the bottom of a UFO, and then I see his body sticking up like that, kind of out of it, but right in front of me, big. It's all I can see. And 2 hands out like this, right? And at that moment, I was taught the delusions of mankind. And it's how we are basically, in short, not trying to say we're manipulated, but we're taught things that aren't necessarily true from a very, very young age. And the things that we're taught are basically like assumptions, expectation, you know, a lot of wants, don't wants, and those are all typically instilled by media, right? Like we were just talking about earlier. And so I was shown how the media is used to create delusions, how we literally put every single thing where it is. We put the rocks where they are, we put the trees where they stand. As humans, you know, we create our philosophies that we follow, but it's not, none of it's really real because it's literally a fractal of someone else's creation. So like, say I'm an artist, I'm an inventor, I made skate case. And now for anyone to dedicate their entire life to working under skate case would mean that they dedicated their life to fulfilling a fractal of my delusion. Is the easiest way to put it, right? I'm not trying to like offend my own product. You know, I love my product. I think it's great. But that same goes true for any product, any organization. Like you're literally living your life to live under someone else's delusion instead of the reason why you were literally put on earth, which is to be part of, you could say, the greater land or flow, or to fulfill your experience. And so that's something that I've always kind of just known to be true because I've had those experiences as a kid. And growing up, I would see how parents would talk to kids and use fear or use sacrifice of want or material. And for me, it was like, I don't need that. I'm good. You know, it was hard to discipline someone who doesn't really need things. But basically, yeah, no, because of that, I've been working on my mission, essentially, you know, to promote peace and harmony throughout the world. Because the easiest way to put it is like, I'm not trying to like say China's bad or another country's bad, but you know, in the US, common view is like, oh, China, oh no, China. And in China, they're like, oh, the US, right? It's like, guys, human here, human here. You guys literally created this thing called the USA. You literally created this thing called China. And now you're going to have a war over it and literally create the biggest assumptions and delusions ever that the people are any different than you are. They're literally the same. They're people. They're human. Like to think they're any different is crazy. And so those types of delusions go any, you know, between guys and girls is probably the worst ones I've ever seen. But you see what I'm saying, right? It just continues onward, and they've been taught through doubtful actions, right? Because kids do what their parents do, and if the parents, I'm not saying parents are in doubt, but a lot of the things that, I'm not a parent, so it's hard for me to, you know, say I wouldn't do the same thing. But a lot of the things that you said, you know, don't do that, Johnny, or don't do that, is because the kid you think he might get hurt, but he didn't get hurt. He's having a great time. It's a paranoia that exists that's not real. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I let my kids explore the world and they're happier for it.
right. Well, yeah, I mean, if you don't, then you literally are almost cutting out their own natural instinct,
Hmm.
like not letting them develop as the full human that they're supposed to be, right? Like a house cat compared to a cat in the wild, I mean, their skills are so much different. Yeah.
Yeah. I told my son that he could find stone tools once and he came home with an amazing stone tool. Um, I could probably share screen it. Go ahead and talk about some other stuff.
Oh, well, so basically, after we understand all of that stuff, right, I just kind of went through, I have one more book that I'm finishing up right now, right? Might as well talk about that real quick. It's called and this has a lot to do with the hitchhiker effect. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about when it comes to UAPs and like ghosts and like
Yeah.
beings kind of like latching onto you and then passing on to someone else? So I recently, I did a podcast with Artisan Tony, Chris Lato, and Ratherby Squidding. And Ratherby was talking about how there's this hitchhiker effect that comes from Skinwalker Ranch, right? So sometimes the beings might latch onto people and they'll go home with them. And people are very, it's very confusing. Like, who knows why? With my book and my theory and all that stuff, basically, I do have in my opinion, a very feasible and reasonable explanation for it. And so that I haven't fully written out that section yet. It's coming next in this writing, but it's called The Physics of Love. And I think right now might be a good time to do a screen share, actually. So I'm just going to go ahead and show. Let me show this. Okay, I know what I'll do. I think this will work out the best. So our entire experience is basically a vortex of energy, right?
Hmm.
And so now I'm going to do the screen share, just to kind of show. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, imagine that this is related to that center drawing, and that there's areas of laminar flows, and that there's areas of turbulent flows. And when it comes to, you could say, the greater structure and harmony, the easiest way to think of it is when you exist in a turbulent region, you're experiencing karmic cycles. You're literally going in circles within the fluid of time and just repeating the same types of, you could say, mistakes or the same type of experience, even if it's going to work the same day and the same job. That's still a karmic cycle. So you're caught in one of those vortexes, right? Because each one of those circles basically represents a fractal of a delusion in a way, right? So if, say, one of these represents skate case, right? If you spend your entire life fulfilling skate case, now you've literally gone in circles in this little fractal of delusion, as opposed to being part of this greater structure, which would be greater laminar flow. Because in order to live in a fractal of someone's delusion, you have to have some type of ego about you. You have to have said to yourself, oh, I am a doctor that works at this office and I have to be here at this time and leave at this time. When my pager rings, I need to answer it, right? You have to have created your entire experience. And so you really aren't living with the flow. You're more living in a delusion you've created. And so each time you do that, you basically have a karmic cycle. And then you have that greater laminar flow. And you could say in this drawing that our experience of like peaceful beta harmonic waking consciousness is that big blue ring that's just nicely going in a circle. And then you could say that those other flow regions are just turbulent regions that exist on the boundaries. But what I wanted to do was relate this concept to the Skinwalker Ranch hitchhiking phenomenon. And so later on in this book, what I do is show this structure here. So let me do a new share real quick and give you this. Can you see a 3D CAD model now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now imagine instead of having like a nice circular flow around the center of time, you have a more realistic view. You have people in there, and you have things that are stressed out. You have turbulent natures. You have people holding their egos and wants. And you could say, just for discussion here,
that this center area is Skinwalker Ranch. So this little area, I'm zooming in on a Skinwalker Ranch. And each one of those represents a magnetic vortex. So it's a perfect habitat. This is the river of time. All these lines represent the river of time. And the blue lines represent our nice flowy beta waking universe. But within there, you have turbulent flows within the quantum state. And so there, now compare that to a river on Earth. On a river on Earth, in rapids, you have stuff like algae. You know, you have different types of fish live in the algae. And whereas in the open water, you have the bigger fish, you know. And so in different flows of space, literally different quantum flows within the fifth dimension, different beings can exist. And so now we're going to do a quick top view. This will be fun. And say this is you walking in with the turbulent nature. And imagine there's like a little bug here. This will be fun. I'm gonna have fun with this. All right, so this is now some type of negative entity right here, this guy, right? So he's like something that'll latch onto us, but he can only live in these little vortexes. And here is your home over here, right?
Mhm.
And so you come from your home, you come hang out at Skinwalker Ranch. It's like, oh, well, I can swim into a new swimming pool for a little bit because this guy actually has a turbulent nature about him. And so he can exist within you. It's almost like having a cup of salt water. And now and a fish that lives in salt water can jump into it. And so you're a perfect thing for that thing to exist within. And so now it will, if you leave, it literally, if it's not close enough, it can't get away or it dies. So it needs to stay with you while you go home. So that's just something I think, helps explain the whole hitchhiker phenomenon when it comes to beings of all sorts, right? It's just a different view. But what I also think is really cool from this book, I'm going to open it up real quick too, just so we can see that. I'm going to do another screen share here. This is the new one I'm writing now. It's called The Physics of Love. And this is the actual, let me see, new share here. Can you see a book now?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, what we noticed though, okay, when it comes to the evolution of conscious types from that book, The Crystal of Time, after the universe first collides with time, the very first wave that comes into existence is the delta wave. And then as the universe gets closer and closer to the center of time, literally new harmonics are created. So it's like delta gets created, and then as it reaches that perfect distance, theta gets awakened. So delta, theta, alpha, beta. And so the closer you are to the center of time, the denser your experiences are, okay? So this is all within the quantum state. And so here you have, all right, let me do this real quick, just so we can like exactly know what we're talking about. And so now here you have your body existing within reality. So through your literal stillness, you are the habitat for beings in denser harmonics. Like your stillness creates the habitats that exist. And so that also relates to the quantum consciousness that is allowed to evolve and the rate of evolution of quantum consciousness within you, okay? And so basically, through stillness, we actually create intelligences, is another important thing to note. And so that goes back to the Indian stupas from, I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
It's mythology. Basically, through your stillness, you can create, you can manifest like different beings. I see that's where CE5, I've very much had experiences, through CE5, and I'm not downplaying Greer's work or anyone's work or anything like that. Very great work, and I appreciate everything he does. I think some people, though, may be skillful enough practitioners of meditation to literally create a stupa, where they are literally creating their own manifestation within the sky that then, it's an intelligence that is created within you. So just something to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about, actually. I'm gonna have to watch this video a couple times myself.
Well, you're just letting me talk here, so I mean, I could just go on and on about random stuff.
I love
If-
it. I mean,
All right. Well, so basically in this one, we just talk about how there's those laminar flows versus turbulent flows, how through stillness, we have quantum experience. So our experience is our normal 3D experience, right? If you consider the Planck-sized consciousness, call that a quantum experience. So through our stillness, we evolve quantum experiences, right? And so that's basically where I'm at. I'm writing this one right now. But I have this model coming up, for the next sections that show the laminar flows, turbulent flows, how they affect that, how there's different habitats, how they latch on. And that's all called the physics of love right there. And ultimately, to relate it to the whole, like, you could say God and like devil thing, I don't like using those words. Those are words that I've actually never heard those words in meditation. And I've almost been shown not to use those words because there's so much strife about them. But basically, you could say that the blue lines would be God's will, like the greater structure, the greater Om, right? It's one with the greater structure of reality and going with the flow. And these little ones here are more of like karmic cycles that have been instilled through a want, don't want, assumption, or expectation, right? And so these are like little karmic cycles that people get pulled into. So these stem from doubt, ultimately, at the end of the day. And these ones, this would be faith. It's really the easiest way to describe all of that. And so that'll be included in the book, The Physics of Love, which I should have finished very soon. Once I sit down and actually start writing it, I'll be able to finish it. But it just hasn't been the right time to write,
mhm.
So I've just been getting my details together before I actually like sit down and write it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I write too, so.
What do you like to write about, or what do you write?
Well, I wrote about my old painting. I wrote
Niagara.
about Halloween.
Congratulations on the position.
Thanks.
With
Thanks
the,
a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. So
Um,
you're gonna get your photo printed and sold out there in Niagara, the original oldest photo of Niagara Falls.
Everybody wants one. I have someone that I had made a long time ago, and I've been giving them away. I got to stop doing that, but I think a lot of people would want one. So, because it can be a postcard, even it could be a $4 or $5 item, a $2 or $3 item, whatever. So I'm looking forward to that venture.
Yeah, I think it could definitely be anything, especially once you get. I mean, this event was actually for trademarks and patent and trademarks. So get that copyright on your photo, and then I would go straight to those postcard guys, right?
Yeah, I haven't copyrighted it. I probably should.
It's not that well, it's not that expensive. It'd be pretty easy for you, I think, too.
Mhm.
Relatively speaking, I everything's relative, but as far as like processes, it's not that expensive. I got my patent pending for my interdimensional telescope for like $300. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's good for a year. It lets me go out there and make all kinds of noise. And I've invested, but I'm not too worried about it,
Mhm.
So that'll at least get you something. But yeah, so I mean, I've been working on that. I'm trying to think of other projects that I do. I became so based on that whole mission and movement, right? I really want to like help free the people. And this is not in my book, The Fifth Dimension, but it'll be in the book, The Physics of Love. Is that at the end of the day, a lot of sickness and disease ends up coming from stress.
Mhm.
Earlier, we talked about the golden spot, your natural node of manifestation within the universe, and how all wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations create a pacing about your natural existence. And if you wanted to consider the stress-strain relationship that your body has within the universe, when you exist in your golden spot, you're not undergoing any stress and you're not undergoing any strains. So stress in engineering terms is the force, and strain is how much it bends or squishes or twists, right? So if you naturally are supposed to be manifesting right here,
but you have such a strong want, or someone's like literally forcing you to do something because you need to make money, right? So like you're doing some whatever. Your body, you literally are straining your natural manifestation within the universe.
Mhm.
And that literally creates distortions of your manifestation, which literally creates to distorted cells, right? So cell death, potentially aging and all that kind of stuff. And so I think for me, I think it's really important people understand the concept of the golden spot. And so what I was getting at though, was when it comes to why do people sleep? And I think it has a lot to do with a resynchronization to that greater structure that we were, so that we had that little model of like the laminar flows and the turbulent flows. So I think when people sleep, it allows their mind to relax, their consciousness, which is literally gyroscopically processing through the fluid of time. It allows it to relax and reharmonize to its natural existence of synchronization within the light state. So I think that sleep is directly related to a resynchronization of sorts. And so that's why we sleep, and that's why there's so much health benefits that come from sleeping. So I thought that would be important to talk about a little bit too. So that will also be coming out in the Physics of Love, talking about that a little bit.
Uh-huh. That's
Yeah.
such an interesting title and everything. I can't wait to read that.
Yeah, I mean, I just had so many synchronicities left, like literally one after the other, after the other, after the other in my life. And the one that really got me confident and going was this one that came from the Crystal of Time.
Mhm.
And the reason why is because I literally finished writing it at 2:21 in the morning at February 21st, 2021, right?
Wow.
And so it's a lot of like 2 2 1s, 2 2. I thought that was interesting at the time, and I didn't think too much of it. But then literally when I finished writing The Fifth Dimension,
Mhm.
you see that literally the foundation and the fundamental principle between potentially interdimensional travel and the magic squares is that 2 squared is equal to 1. I have such a hard time holding this. Here we go. Nope, this page. Is that 2 squared is equal to 1. So for every 2 squared, you get 1, right? So that's 2 squared equaling 1 magnetic vortex. And so then I made quick YouTube videos about each one of my books. And guess how long the video ended up being for the Crystal of Time, right?
How long?
20 minutes and 21 seconds.
Wow.
Like on the dot. Not even like trying to do that, not just that's how long it was. And so for me, the synchronicities have just been through the absolute roof. And another good example of one of the synchronicities is, I guess, so I mentioned earlier how I've been trying to remain as dumb as possible throughout my entire life.
Mhm.
That was something I was taught is don't listen to delusion, don't listen to what anyone else says. You have you and the universe, right? You can say you and God, right? Or something like that. But so then when I wrote the book Time Atom, I named this inner ring of perception the Noviverse. Can you see that?
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's called the Noviverse, and that's basically the realm we go to after we pass away. It's called the Noviverse in my book. When I was doing an interview with Chris Lato and Artisan Tony, basically Chris Lato brings up the point that this guy named Lockhart or Lovehart wrote a book called Gaia, right? And started the whole Gaia thing. And he has this next layer of time that has faster processing speed, just like that. And he calls his the Nova Scene. So instead of Noviverse, he calls it Nova Scene. So, okay, so that's one synchronicity that just absolutely blew my mind away.
Mhm.
And then my nickname from soccer growing up in high school is Looshes,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Do you already understand that, or do I have? What's your familiarity with the Looshes? What does that mean?
It's energy siphoned off of us, like when we're in fear. And I've heard someone describe it. I can't think of the guy's name now. He did out of body experiences. Robert Monroe. He described Loosh really well. I read his book.
Right. So basically, in the book, The Physics of Love, so in the fifth dimension, in all these books, I've been calling it the fluid of time, the raw energy of experience, right?
Mhm.
It's just the raw energy of experience. And then in the book, The Physics of Love, let me go ahead and do that share screen. The Physics of Love, synchronicity, right, is like literally the name of the book.
Mhm.
Right here, I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can make that bigger. Right here, this area. It's like basically, I'm just going to read this first section. Quite honestly, where do you begin and where do you end? What is it that defines you and your space? From the fifth dimension, we see that our creation comes from the overlapping of all waves in the multiverse. They create a general light state, a sort of pool of overlapping energy which remains in harmony as described by the magic square. I dare not call it EM because it is not EM and it is not matter. It is a state of matter being half stretched and light being half crunched. It is the state of the fluid of experience before it is perceived by a conscious entity. For our purposes, we will call this the Looshes state. It is the raw energy that is not yet in a state of perception. Remember, reality is being stretched into existence as energy orbits and we process. The perceived length and age of the universe. So basically, I call the raw energy of experience the Loosh, right? And so I posted about that on Twitter and I got some feedback. Oh, whoa, have you heard Monroe? No, who's that? So now I've heard about Monroe, who calls it the Loosh, how aliens use it. And so now I'm going to do a share screen with you guys to describe how I think that the aliens use the Loosh. So basically, these are the turbulent flows that exist within reality. The more doubtful, the more fearful you are, the more negative you are, the more of these types of energies actually exist. You're literally creating a bigger, instead of it just being your house, if every single person, let's just do a quick example here, right? So we'll do a quick array, a quick rectangular array of like 10 of these guys and 10 of those guys. Oh, that's not big enough hole. Let me do a bigger spacing. 100 and 100. Whatever. I'm trying to do it too quickly, so it's not working. I'm making like 1,000 little circles right now. But basically what you see is that instead of it being a nice laminar flow, only like big fish can exist, you got like an entire turbulent existence. Does that make sense? Right? So now all these different types of beings can come into existence. Oh, well, maybe the UFO phenomenon picks up and maybe some type of disclosure needs to start happening. But if you want to relate that, so now we have these turbulent flows, right, that can exist. I've made way too many of them and didn't put them right. Let me just get rid of those. But I think my point was proven, right? Like you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the more turbulence that exists, the more habitats are created for these beings to actually exist. And so one thing that's come to me through my meditations, and I normally don't talk about like things that I can't really prove, right? So at this point, I'm speculating. All right, so this is a speculation. You could say that, let me do another screen share here. So this page right here shows our entire experience around the center of time, and there's laminar regions, and there's turbulent regions between the laminar regions of flow. What I've felt from my meditations and from my experiences is that literally December 21st, 2012, you could say if our universe is orbiting in this blue region, there would be another laminar flow that exists outside of it. And so at that moment, another universe passed ours. And what it did was tug on our universe. And so it actually started this pacing nature between turbulent, laminar turbulent, laminar turbulent, and it's been Fibonacciing back to zero, right? Mm-hmm. But it hasn't done that many cycles yet. From what I've seen, we got tugged out December 12th,
or December 21st, 2012. We only went back to the middle here, March 21st, 2021, very recently. Our entire experience has gone back into laminar flows. And so this moment of greatest inwardness, right, relates to June 21st, 2029, which it has a lot to do with the Great Reset. Another turbulent experience is coming into our entire dimension. So I just wanted to throw that out there for people, because, you know, the UFO phenomenon picked up in 2012. We literally, our entire experience got pulled into doubt. We've lately been relieving all of our doubts. Does that make sense? We've been like relieving all of our doubts, and but if you still hold that fear, then that doubt can still exist with you. But we're about to experience it again coming up in a little bit potentially. Just something I wanted to share. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, or what do you think?
Well, that's pretty interesting stuff. It's I'd have to think about it quite a bit. It's kind of above my pay grade, but I know someone who would like to think about this and see where it could lead him. It's very, very interesting. I mean, totally, I can see it happening. Totally.
Yeah. So what's wild to me is, you know, I studied astronomy, and while studying astronomy, everyone's like, "Oh, are you doing astrology?" And I was like, "No, I don't study astrology." Right? It's just something I would say. But it's like after you go through these books, once you get to the liquid light state universe, you're like, okay, we're being manifested from the stars. There is a golden spot. There might be some truth to the stars in relationship to where you exist. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, no, so everything kind of relates. And when you bring in the Mayan calendar and they have predictions of cycles of time, there was an event that occurred, and I do think it tugged on our entire universe and created a drift and a pacing nature. But it's one of those things you were talking about earlier. How do you ever prove that the devil was sucked into a vortex or something?
Yeah, you can't.
Right. Yeah.
It's a great to think about, but you can't.
No, yeah. So I mean, I can talk about all that kind of stuff forever, but the only way to actually ever prove it. Okay, so these are my proofs that I have. If the universe is expanding based off of if it's a perception thing,
Mhm.
right? Perception is being stretched and crunched, then the relationship between the amount of stretchness would match that of crunchness. Okay, and so what we see is as our universe gets older and expands more, denser and denser matters are created. That's a check. So that's one check. The next check would come into actually like making some type of interdimensional technologies, and things like that. But it's really hard to actually prove that it's perception being stretched as opposed to universe expanding. But I do think that the greatest proof comes from looking at the densest matter in existence. So if you say that this is the greatest stretchness, based off of our greatest stretchness, there does exist a greatest crunchedness. So that would be the greatest density of our entire universe, right? So which black hole is the densest black hole in all of the universe? I mean, I'm not asking, I'm just saying you should be able to predict the densest part of a black hole based off of how we have a smooth cosmic microwave background.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I know that, yeah, so maybe that's for Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, get him on that one.
I don't know about those guys. I think they make half of that up.
I 100% respect everything they do. They are very legitimate, they're good people. But, it's the scientific is very touch, taste, smell, testable, repeatable. And I understand why, right? Because people want things that work,
Mhm.
right? It needs to work every time to sell it.
Yeah.
But
they could have at least admitted aliens exist a long time ago, and they never did. In my book, I don't think so. Maybe he did. Has that Neil deGrasse Tyson ever addressed them?
I think he talks about the Drake equation, or he might. I don't know if he does, but the Drake equation is a very scientific approach to basically saying if we're the only life out there, then that you just kind of crazy for thinking that, right? The number of stars, the number of planets, the number of galaxies, there's so many planets to think we're the only habitable one in the entire
existence, I'm not even gonna say universe because that's just our perception, in the entire existence is a very human thing, right? It's very egotistical.
Yeah. Well, they live right inside Earth too. So
Exactly.
There's
In
a-
my opinion, they live in the atoms themselves. Like they get smaller and smaller.
no
Yeah.
doubt.
Well, you mean advanced beings, though, from Earth, living in Earth,
Yeah.
right?
There's a place called Telos.
Right? What is you want to talk about Tellus for a minute here? Or?
Well, I've just heard about it. It's Mount Shasta. It's supposed to be in Mount Shasta, and they're in higher dimensions than us, and some of them are helping us. So I think they are. Anyway, do you think we're getting aid from outside?
Well, I mean, what's out? So from outside, you mean normal? So what's outside? What's inside? Oh my God! So that's where it's like, have you been removed of delusion your entire life or not? So it's people that are very inside. They only know that you need money and money equals success. I go to work every day and I'm woke. They'll walk around saying that they're woke because the TV told them they're woke. Right. So
Mhm.
that I call, I mean, I'm still human, right? I've lived a very earthly experience, like flesh and you know what I'm saying, like human, but I don't, so that's where the difference is in, you could say, the perception, right?
Mhm.
Like literally, I just to kind of give an example, I completely moved out into the woods for 9 months with my camper and just basically lived off of not lived off the land because I still had a job, still used my truck, pulled up to the camper, but I had to go get my water, fill it up 5-gallon jugs. I had a generator. I don't really believe in the human delusion of success. I always believe that success is able to love everyone in your day. That's my greatest like vision, like literally being able to have harmony with every single person you come across in your day. But not only that, so you know how I mentioned the whole like you're at zero, like the golden spot brings you to zero, to where you're fully confident. When you interact with someone, every interaction you have with someone should be bringing them closer to their zero, right? I see a lot of people, and especially when it comes to sales, and you know you want to literally you want to instill some type of doubt so that they buy something, and so like you're literally taking people away from their zero, when you do stuff like that. And so when it comes to like society and what people think is success, yeah, they might get a lot of money, they might do really well, but they've literally walked around creating a lot of like disharmony because they've just created like a million wants and don't wants within the reality obtaining their success. So like, is it really that good to be successful, or does that ultimately create greater disharmony? I think, like I was saying before, true success, I would say, is just understanding that things are just things
Mhm.
and people are just people. We're all on the same side, which is the human race. You know, I could go on forever on this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just want to help people myself. So that's all I'm about, you know.
And so, I mean, for me, I think the reason why I do coloring books, I do cartoons, I play piano, like I do the grand piano and I write music. And I do, you know, like every medium imaginable because everybody learns in a different way. And yeah, I mean, it's just been what I do, you know.
Mhm.
You know, what I was getting at is the greatest help though that you can give someone is inner confidence. And it really is almost Bob Marley-ish. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I walk
Yeah,
around smiling and waving to people. You know, that they see me, they see a happy person.
right. Well, that's where I used to, not that I mess with people in stores, but I'm very observant. And so I would stand in stores and I'm at the grocery store in line, right? And so I'm looking around and everyone else is looking at their phone. And so only like maybe one other person in the entire other store is actually like observing and looking around. Um, so when you do make eye contact with someone though, it becomes an awkward moment almost, or a rare thing, or they see it as like a threat to where it's a quick look away. Like I can't let them know that that person just saw me. And
Mhm.
it's like, why not? Why can't we have just like made eye contact? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they can deal with it someday and come around to our way of thinking. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, for sure.
There is a lot of people out there that are kind of lost. So I'm hoping they get found soon.
Well, the hardest thing is that it's almost very Star Trek-y, right? You have
Mhm.
to like Luke Skywalker kill your greatest demon, and only you can do that yourself. No one else can do that for you. No one can like hold your hand and truly have you conquer fear.
Mhm.
You have to do that yourself.
Yeah, I hear people complain about what we're going through right now, and I'm like, you guys have no idea what we got to do to get out of this, you know?
Oh, yeah. What's no, yeah, it's crazy for me though. Like, so I had a lot of powerful visions started coming in around 2012 time, and you could say I saw black. I'm not going to say I saw Black Lives Matter run through the U.S., but I did write out very specifically in emails. I was born in Cape Town during the apartheid. It's coming here now. You know, kind of holy shit, like, excuse my language. But I was very panicky during those emails. They were very powerful visions of Black Lives Matter essentially happening in the U.S. And then also kind of COVID kind of things coming through. And but yeah, so I forgot what we were getting at, or what
And
I was getting at.
BLM is not even American. Did you know it was born in East Germany?
Well, that's one of the great you could say great delusions as well too. You know, the whole like different color thing, and like
Yeah.
it's so hard for me to go along with that. I understand that people are born into different, and I'm not trying to downplay people's how they feel, right? But at the end of the day, you have to realize that the greatest battles are won within. Very, very Marines, Ruha. But like literally the greatest battles are won within. And like in order to truly remove fear, you have to do that yourself. And a lot of those things that you think are your expectations, or not even expectations, a lot of the things that you think are your limitations are just things that you think are your limitations. That's not really the truth. You can do it, like anybody can do anything, right? Like the moon is the Mars is the limit today at this point. But I mean, let's just say the fifth dimension is the limit, you know?
Mhm.
uh,
That might be coming along anytime now.
right? I'm not worried about it.
No, me neither. I'll welcome it any day it comes around. I'll be happy.
Well, there was a point, right, where I did live in doubt, you could say, and I did fear death, like legitimately fear death. But not only that, like my friends passing, like I'll never see that person again, kind of like worrying all the time. And it was after a great college friend actually like took their own life, you know? And it really instilled a lot of fear into not only me, but like everyone that ended up being around me, because like, you know, different habitats revive. And but so it was just a good moment of fear for everyone actually, because a lot of other stuff was happening. But I forgot what we were just talking about.
You
But
know, I got a crazy story for you. When I was 15 and my father was 51, he passed away he was in World War II, and he died of his injuries. And a few days later, lightning hit his car. I was home alone, and there was two windows in the house that were open. And this silver ball about this big, after lightning hit his car, the silver ball floated in one window of the house and out the other. Real
that's so
slow.
cool.
And I just stood there watching it. And I think it was my father coming to say goodbye to me.
Well, so that's what I was getting at. Okay, so like that's why we were talking about like the whole passing away thing. I 100%, like, I mean, based off of what you just said, I agree that it most likely was, right? So at that time when that happened, I didn't know that my friend had passed away, but I reached out to a really good, like my best mutual friend, like my best friend at the time, you know? And basically I didn't even know that the friend had passed away, but I was having dreams and they were very powerful. And so, but it ended up being the case that the person had passed away. And then I took a while, maybe 5 more years after that, before I actually started asking my family about, because I started having a lot of stuff. And it's like, well, your grandmother, or your grandmother was actually like super spiritual seance person from Buenos Aires, Argentina, but like a little bit north of there. And then like I goes back further. Oh, your grandparents were kidnapped by the Nazis, you know. Oh, your grandfather was pen pals with Albert Einstein. Oh, wait, your grandfather snuck out, escaped. rescued your grandmother. They fled to France where your dad was born. And now, so there's like a story there, right?
Mhm.
Point being is that my one half my family from my mother's side, not that side, but my mother's side, very, very spiritual, right? And then you could say always mystics. They actually did seance type things. I've never done a seance or anything like that, but they would. And then yeah, so I've come to realize that I do have that connection, right? The afterlife does exist. It does exist within our flow of space. And so after that, I really, so you just mentioned how you had the lightning bolt incident.
Yeah.
For me, I call it the coffee maker incident, where literally like 12:30 basically every night for about a week, the coffee maker just starts going off 12:30 at midnight. And so my buddy I was playing video games with online, he just kind of jokingly says, "Oh, you probably got a ghost," you know? And so like I started freaking me out. So I actually unplugged the coffee maker before it could happen. And then I'd plug it in the next time and it would happen again. So I kept unplugging it. But then one night I put a lighter on the counter and I literally pulled out my video camera and I said, "Mess with the lighter instead," kind of thing. And I've never just filmed my living room, but nothing happened there. But that night, my parents kind of basically called me and told me that my uncle had passed in Argentina. So basically he had been sick. And the night that I was like, kind of like, show yourself to me, let's actually like talk, was the night he actually passed away. And I hadn't known about any of that. And so it was like very like, there was a ghost here coming to say goodbye afterwards. And I even like went to my mom and told her the whole experience afterwards. And it like made my parents so relieved to hear that like it was cool, like it's not a problem. You just basically like you're in the afterlife. It's a caterpillar becoming a butterfly.
Yeah, we just transitioned.
Yeah. I mean, it's so cool. Like I it's not like I want to happen today, you know what I'm saying? But like I don't fear it. It's not gonna hold me back, kind of thing.
I had a strange experience where I was watering my house plants and I had a radio on for them. I was playing classical music and so it wasn't working one day. So I just unplugged it. I don't know. It's just an old radio. I don't know what's wrong with it. So I just unplugged it. And then about a week later, I was watering the plants and the thing started playing all by itself.
Right.
For about a second. It just came on. And I looked at it and it wasn't even plugged in.
Just a jolt of energy went through it, right?
While I was pouring water to the plants.
Right.
At the same time. So I figured it must have been the energy from the water or something like that.
The plants were happy.
Yeah. Yeah, they used their field of energy to make some music come out of it that they used to hear. Very strange.
Well, I mean, I believe in like telekinesis, right? And all that stuff. Like there's no question for me. And a lot of that stuff, like what's the difference between telekinesis and then literally manifesting music out of a machine? There's no difference. It's literally just being able to control that quantum state with your energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And once people realize that like how that flow of quantum state and the density relationship, I think they can start applying it to themselves and like I've never done yoga in my life. I've taken like 3 classes, but everything I do, I've had yogis that are like 90 years old literally call me and say like, how the hell do you know all this? So everything I talk about is very yoga related. And yeah, so if you wanted to talk about like the chakra lines, each one is almost stemming from a different density of experience, is also another good way to think of it when you have those orbits in time. So you can do an interdimensional, what I've now termed to myself, I call it interdimensional yoga. And it's where you align yourself throughout all the different dimensions, but not only within your 7 that I think that they say you have, but also your past life and future life. So it's like an alignment of a full alignment of your golden spot, right?
After my first series of UFO sightings, we got a book on past life regression. We read it and we did past life regression on each other after seeing the UFO. It's like, where did that come from?
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And it was really strange because have you ever done that?
No, one of my friends last night actually mentioned, he's like, you need to do a regression therapy. I was like, no, I haven't done it. Like, how was yours?
Do you want to know what happens? I'll
Well, I
tell you.
mean,
You go through the birth process in reverse.
oh, wow.
It happened to both of us.
Huh.
And we were
Yeah,
like,
I think that sounds interesting. I'd love to try that one time, you know?
you should.
He was more saying not for the reincarnation, but more for just to like try to recall more about the UFO events that I've, you know, because I'll tell him like, oh, you know, there was the gray being and he held up his hands. He's like, dude, that's it. I was like, that's what I got for you. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
should definitely do it.
yeah, I think that'd be fun one day. I mean, that's where I'll say, I think for me, it's, there's only been one time where maybe I was on a craft, but it could have also been one of the visions that I speak of.
Mhm.
Like, but basically, I'll just go ahead and say it. I was driving home because the reason why there's the maybe is because I saw something in the sky that night. I also had the telepathic communication before the event. And like, so as I'm driving home to my camper, I see this red kind of vortexy thing looking thing in the sky, right? A good bit of ways though, high up in the sky, just almost like a red kind of like smear. If you were to look at a comet or something like that, it looked very similar to a comet. And didn't think anything of it really. But then as like literally the second I close my eyes when I'm laying in bed, I can see directly through my eyelids, but everything's glowing red. So I could literally see the wall. I could see my nightstand. I could see the entire room, but like in a, as almost as if there was a red light on, right? And at that moment, I heard it come outside in my head. Come outside if you want to see the craft kind of thing. And I was kind of tired and also like upset at the time. And so I was like, nah, good. Doesn't really matter what I say anyway. You know, it was my you could say my telepathic reply or just the thought I had, you know, like as I'm laying in bed. So it's either I fell asleep and had a dream or an event did happen. But either way, the next thing, so from seeing my entire room, the next thing I see is I'm inside of a craft and I can see out stars outside, right? And there's this gold sphere standing in the middle. And there's like these three trichones that are holding it up. And there's like a presence behind me. And basically, I just walk over and put my hand on this gold sphere, you know, and like that was, and then that was basically, I woke up and I was just like, oh my God, that was crazy. I did the 3D model of it. The whole next day, you know, I told everyone at work, like I just had the craziest dream / potential experience. Like, yeah,
That is
I always,
crazy.
yeah, for me, it's very dreamlike though, you know, it's, um,
That's interesting because I had a Star Trek type dream once where I was on a big Star Trek type ship and we were running to get onto these smaller ships to go onto a planet somewhere out in the cosmos. And it was so real, but it was very, very short, but it was full color. And I didn't speak to anybody or anything, but there was other people and it was spaceships and stuff. And I was on a spaceship. So it was very strange. It was almost like I was in another dimension or something, you know?
well, that's where it's like, how good does your consciousness actually interact with these other realms of experience? And then how good can you, if your brain learns at 20 hertz, you know what I'm saying? Like you're literally creating nanotubules in your brain folds that then resonate with 20 hertz as far as recollection. So if you're like actually processing information, but you're at a theta state, right? Which is like the 8 hertz or the 4 hertz, your brain doesn't have as many, it hasn't worked out in that field for so long, is what I'm getting at. Like you're tuned to 20. The guy, Artisan Tony, that I do podcasts with,
Yeah.
he always talks about the second he hits theta, boom, he is tuned to another world. Right. So for Tony, I think he has worked out his theta muscles. Right. So his brain actually has good nanotubules for theta, most likely. But so as you know, so then the point being is that it's hard to recall information that's learned when you're in a delta state or information that's learned when you're in a theta state and during your waking state, right? Unless you do some type of like hypnotic therapy where the hypnotist literally puts you back into those states. And now all of a sudden you can remember, well, it's because that's where how the memory was put in.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
You know, it's like sometimes people that don't like if you drink a lot, like and you like take and you study and you're in college. Have you ever heard that before? Like if you study drunk, you better take the test drunk or you won't remember anything.
No,
Like,
I never went to college, man.
no, like that's like a thing they say. Like if you're always partying, then make sure you party when you if you're partying when you study, then you better party when you take your test because you have to be in that same state of mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny.
So it kind of relates to the whole like learning in your dreams and then having to like have you to use a hypnotic regression in order to remember your memory.
I had a
Yeah.
dream come true exactly like it happened. Exactly. I dreamt I was spinning in a car in the middle of the road, and I was going with my friend. He had to go to work, and I was going to use his car to do something. And I was sleeping, and I warned him. I said, "I had this dream, man. Be careful." And I woke up, and we're spinning in the middle of the road. Nobody got
Right.
hurt. It was very small damage, but it was exact. I couldn't. It was like a movie played in my head.
I hear you. I mean, I'm trying to find a poem I wrote actually right now about dreams. I was gonna see if I could do it, but basically, let me see if I can do this.
And we were doing 360s in the middle of the road, man, just like the dream.
Right.
Bizarre. And nobody got hurt. That's the weirdest part. And the only damage on the vehicle was only about $100.
That's not bad. I mean, how many times did you spin out there?
Like 3 or 4.
Right. So as far as like your dream, but it was like what you saw, right? Yeah. I mean,
It was total precognition.
yeah, I have, like I was saying, I've been learning in my dreams my entire life, and basically I'll wake up, and what I've called it is, so from the book, The Liquid Light State Universe, I talk about the concept of the light state. And I showed you in the physics of love drawings, how everybody can have different turbulent regions and laminar regions. And so you can consider that the light state of your body, right? The laminar flows that exist within you versus the turbulent flows. And those are a relationship to the incoming light state of the universe. But, oh man, what were you just talking about? I had to relate it to that.
Spinning in the middle of the road in a Volkswagen.
So with the dreams, basically the thing that it comes to really learning the dreams is what kind of memory do you have? Like, I'm not asking, it's a more of a rhetorical thing. Like, do you remember how things feel? Do you remember how things look? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you remember how things smell? So like for me, oh, go ahead. I mean, if you want to answer that real
I was just going to say, maybe in the more vivid ones, that's all.
Well, I was getting at some people are very like visual learners. Some people are very auditory learners, right? For me, it's a very feel type of learning. And so when I'm in my dreams, I can literally feel the actions required. And so when I wake up, I still have that light state. I still have the turbulent muscle movements. I still have every single action and knowledge of how to complete an action, right? And so people can take postures, you know, you can take, I don't know, that's what you can get light states about you. And so you don't even have to think once you have the right light state. You just do the motion.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's just something I've been thinking about. I've been trying to get to this one poem though. Basically, I talk about how dreams like reveal the curtain. I forget which one it's in.
You know, talk about synchronicities. I got that job offer, and the next day, my son came home with a paper box from that newspaper from the 60s.
Right.
He just hands it to me. Here you go.
That's pretty cool. So you're gonna end up making some postcards out of that, and then you can even do like big posters. I think a big thing nowadays too is the NFTs. Have you heard of those? Like the non-tangible,
Non-fungible
tangents. Yeah.
tokens.
Tokens. There you go.
Non-fungible tokens. Yeah.
I made a few for my company with like the magic squares and the habitable spiral of perception. But that would be a really cool like classic NFT.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Definitely.
Yeah, I'll read this poem real quick. It's called "Time is but a thought."
Mhm.
And it's from the Looshes poetry book,
Okay.
which is, so when I made the infinite pool of experience and awareness, basically I do the first 5 books, and then the 6th book is the book of poetry.
Mm.
So the poetry book's included in the anthology, and then also a section of philosophical discussions. But I'll talk about those in a second, actually. So I don't think we've gone over those at all yet.
No, do you sign books for people?
Yes, I sign every book that I ship out. That's one reason I wanted to stay away from Amazon and stuff like that, was so I could literally sign the books, send them out.
Yeah, because I asked Wayne for one and he said he doesn't do it. So I had to buy one that wasn't signed, but that was okay.
Right. Well, here's the poem real quick, because we were talking about dreams and how they kind of create your reality. This one's called Time is But a Thought. Time is but a thought, built straight from your mind. It cannot be sold or bought, and thinks you fall behind. Many stress as the hours go by, with no place to rest. Ask yourself why. Did man make the clock? Yes, I believe we did. So is it solid like a rock? No, it can be mended. We create our days, and we create our ways. It is all a choice, although you may feel you have no voice. Open your eyes and open your heart. Notice the lies, that's a great start. Yes, time may equal money and can buy you endless honey. But is your life yours, or is it controlled by your chores? We live once for certain, so do take advantage. Dreams reveal the curtain, with endless possibilities to manage. Time is but a joke, created by man to listen. There was then, now, and then, all to make man wealthy and glisten. So do take note that time is just a tool. It is fluid and you own it. And that, my friend, is truly cool. So that's just one of the poems there, talking about how there's like the clock, you're supposed to be on the clock, but you have these dreams and you wake up and you're supposed to do something different. It's like, well, the dreams are telling me to do this, but I'm supposed to go work the clock. It's like, well, put that on hold, because this is what your heart's telling you to do right now. Go take care of whatever other thing later, that some other guy wants you to do for some reason.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with what you're doing.
Yeah. I
You
see,
know what I'm saying?
I see what you
Yeah.
mean. I'm lucky that what I'm doing is I really want to do it. So, it doesn't matter that I'm not getting paid.
I don't get paid. I mean, I might sell a book or two, you never know, but like, as far as the time I've spent into like thinking about this for the last 10 years, and then, you know what I'm saying? Like since 2014, the return's not there. It's not worth my time, but it is worth my time, passionately, because it makes me feel great. Like to be able to have this conversation with you and to put these words on paper, like it's so fulfilling to do something that you see in your dreams and then go and create, and that's why I really like to. When I first started all this, I was an after school martial arts instructor, and so I'd pick kids up from their school and then help them with their homework, but then teach them taekwondo and martial arts. But like the whole time we're just creating, we're doing like coloring. I started innovation workshops over the weekends with them, and we would do like Minecraft camps. I taught the kids how to do 3D modeling. So just all kinds of fun, creative, and there's no wrong answer when it comes to art, right? You didn't get it wrong. You're not wrong. Like Billy's not wrong, for drawing his tree like that.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, it's good.
So those books are available too, the coloring books?
Yes. So I don't know if I might have these on the Lucius Labs website. I know they're on the Skate Case website, and there's a link to Skate Case from Lucius Labs. So it shouldn't be that hard to find.
There's a serious need for children's stuff that isn't that doesn't have any dark edges. You know what I mean?
It's challenging not to have them in there. And I do have a cartoon that's got a, in quotes, bad guy, and I almost want to delete that cartoon, even though I like it. But it's like a pirate that wants to take your gold. It's like, why does the pirate want to take your gold? Like when I lived out in Colorado. So the whole cartoon's like after me too. Like I was a gold miner out in Idaho Springs, Colorado. And so like I've got like gold ore that sits around, and basically in the cartoon, I'm burying my gold, right? Because I don't want anyone to find my gold. So but a pirate comes to rob me, and so my skateboard does nunchucks and fights him off. But like, I don't want to have a pirate come steal my gold to begin with. You know, that already like teaches you, like, if you have gold, you have to hide it from people. You get what I'm saying there? Like, so I don't think that cartoon's going to make the cut.
I totally get what you're saying. Totally.
Yeah. But so this one was called Your Influence in Space, right? The original. This was the 2014 version
Hmm.
with this cover. With the updated version, the one I have for sale on my, just so people know, this one does not, this is the new Your Influence in Space. It does not include philosophical discussions. They all got taken out and they got put into this book, The Infinite Pool of Experience and Awareness. So all of the philosophical discussions from the original Your Influence in Space are in the Infinite Pool of Experience and Awareness. But basically, I've got Thinking with the Universe, and then A Shift in Natural Selection, Dreaming at Light Speed, and then A Universal Consciousness. And those are like the philosophical sections that were originally written in 2014. This is all original writing from 2014. The only thing that I added as far as the philosophical discussions is this very last page. And I would like to read that, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So, with our new understanding of the infinite pool of experience and awareness, we may see that our universe is blossoming like a flower into the sixth dimension. When we look at our flow of primordial energy from the perspective of the sixth dimension, we see it as part of a growing structure. Our universal experience is a result of energy flowing into a black hole. In our experience, we see the spark of new conscious experiences as energy flows into the black hole of every galactic center. We are one part of a structure that is growing into the sixth dimension. We are the harmonizers of that structure. Through love and synchronization, we flow like a river into the next layer of experience as it branches out like water into a lake, heading out to sea, or like a flower blossoming towards the sun. We are the water of the 1/6 dimension, the dimension inwards to where an electron is the universe. We flow like water, we are water, and we are time. We are all one. So there you go.
Wow. I watched a beautiful video the other day where a Native American was explaining that the water is actually us, water on the
We are
earth.
water. But
That's
we're
why
water
I
to-
pray into water.
We're water to the sixth dimension,
Yeah.
right? Because we our harmony in the, remember those drawings earlier with the flows and the quantum state? Our harmony is literally the laminar flow of water, of a river, the river of time.
Exactly.
And when you go more inward, our stillness is literally what allows the denser harmonics to be created. And so it's like we are time and we are water, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We're both.
Definitely. You know, when I was a kid, I was swimming in Lake Erie and I was having so much fun with all this water. And I thought, where did all this water come from? And I immediately got in. It's always been here. You know?
Well, and then science would say we're 75% water anyway, right?
Yeah,
If you wanted to get physical about it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's Einstein's spooky action at a distance is water.
Exactly. The fifth dimensional water, where you can have, so that's an ocean, right? And quantum entanglement, what's that? Well, that's just a water wave traveling through that fifth dimensional ocean, or a sound wave. It's an energy wave propagating through the fifth dimension. I really think that would help a lot of people understand that a little bit more.
I tried to talk to the Skeptic Society. There's this group in Buffalo called the Skeptic Society, and they have meetings and they publish this Skeptical Inquirer magazine, right, where they poo-poo everything, like stuff we're talking about. So I went to one of their meetings once and I started talking about spooky action at a distance and Dr. Emoto, and they went off like a bunch of demons.
Right.
They started swearing at me, calling me names in the middle of a coffee shop.
Yeah. I mean, don't know what to say about that, you know?
I don't either.
Yeah. You got to pick. So that's just like pick and choose your battles, right? At a certain point, it's like those guys probably don't want to hear any more about this. I don't know.
I did it just for fun, you know, and I couldn't believe how they erupted. I mean, I
Right.
needed an exorcist there.
Well, okay, so I mean, that's where it's just like you need to be that laminar flow. Literally, turbulence can't exist within a great flow of laminar flow. Right? Like you can't have a little spiral of energy within this like huge field of love. It's almost
Right.
impossible.
Right, exactly. I was distraught one night over something and I couldn't figure it out how to solve it. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I wrote this big paper on love. How everything is love. There's nothing but love.
I mean, it's and that's where it's like we have our definition, right? Everybody's like, love is when you kiss a girl or something. It's like, okay, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about harmony. We're talking about the synchronization of movement, right? Like the synchronization. That's why I always pull out that magic square, where literally it's like you have one vortex, and that vortex needs to stay in harmony as things move around. It's the harmony of the magic square. It literally is like the foundation of our manifested universe in relationship to our consciousness. I think it's pretty cool.
That's way cool, man. People are just
Yeah.
gonna flip out over this video. I mean, geez. How long did you want to go with this?
How long have we been going?
Almost 2 hours.
I'm good. I just wanted to make sure we made an hour, you know.
Okay. I didn't know what you had planned and we didn't speak about it beforehand. So
No, we didn't. I mean, I'm good to call it a day if you are.
yeah,
Yeah. I think we've covered quite a bit of topics, you know.
we did.
Do you mind if I grab short clippets of this and then make shorter videos out of it?
I could send it to you.
Okay, well, I normally just film the screen.
Okay. No, I don't care. Do whatever you want with it. No, you could be taping it right now for all I care.
Right. No, I mean, what I do is I'll make like a 2-minute clip, and then in the description of the clip, I have for the full length podcast, you know, here it is, and that's going to be on your page. So
That's perfectly fine.
Yep.
I don't care. Nothing's copyrighted from my end, so.
Cool. But yeah, I mean, do you have any like last minute questions for me or anything, or?
Oh, what are your thoughts on Tesla? Here we go for another 2 hours.
Oh man, Elon is a very, you know.
No, the original Tesla.
Oh, Mr. Tesla,
Yes,
Mr. Nikolai.
yes.
Okay. Clearly, probably a very similar to thought. That's the first line everyone else would say. A man way before his time.
Mm-hmm.
A man that did the best he could to put his vision of reality out there, but ultimately, what do I think about Tesla? He did everything he could to change the world, and like he literally created the world we live in today. You know what I'm saying? Like the things that he thought of literally create our world. But his vision of what he actually saw the world to be is not what we have today. And so that's what I was getting at, is that like for him it must have been frustrating because he's trying to do this wireless electricity. You know, he knows way more because he's done all these kinds of experiments that probably wasn't allowed to talk about. And we just have so much technology that should be out right now, and that will be really, I can tell it'll be coming out soon. So let's just put it that way, you know.
Yeah.
The Tesla's dream will come to reality eventually.
I wish I could talk about it, but I can't right now.
One
I
of
will
the-
have more to say in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Like Tesla, I could go on forever about. Last question: what do I think about Tesla? Oh man, one of the greatest rock stars of all time.
I know. Coincidentally, he made the first powerhouse right near where my painting was made in 1783.
Niagara Falls, is that right?
Yep.
Yep. And then coincidentally as well, he went out to Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
And I went out to Boulder, Colorado, but my oldest brother was out in Colorado Springs for college. So I went out there several times, you know, to
Mhm.
visit. I fell in love with Colorado at Colorado Springs, right? So I think it's pretty cool.
That is cool coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I've loved Tesla's work, man. If we had all his inventions today, we would not be in any problems right now.
Well, I mean, as far as, yeah, I mean, we'd have like just the cheaper, like cleaner energy, you know? And then what I was getting at was a lot of his files got taken up, right? He passed away. He had his little treasure chest, it's his chest of his files, and they got taken by the government. It's
Yep.
like, why didn't we get access to that?
Yep. Did you know he was driving a free energy car around Buffalo in 1931? But
I did not know that.
they wouldn't let him sell it. It was a Pierce Arrow. He converted it to free energy and he was driving it around Buffalo, New York. But he got in trouble for that. I think they wouldn't let him make one. And
Such a smart man.
And I called the owner of the Pierce Arrow Museum in Buffalo. I know the guy, and I said, Jim, his name is Jim Sandora. I said, Jim, did you know about Tesla driving I emailed him actually. Did you know about Tesla driving a free energy car around Buffalo? And he said, no, that's not possible. He said, no.
Right.
No. All they had was gas engines, he said.
Well, the very first car was electric. The very first Model T Ford car was an electric car.
Yep. And a lot of people don't know this, but prohibition was not about alcohol. It was about installing gasoline as the primary fuel for cars, because Henry Ford wanted to make a gasohol powered car, a Model T that ran on alcohol. And in order to stop him, they put out prohibition, which he couldn't make any alcohol powered car with prohibition. So people think they know the world and they don't.
Well, and that's where it's like, at the end of the day, I hate saying this, but like when you live in those fractals of other delusions, and the greatest solution we have right now, it's like money is the root of all evil. Well, I mean, people need to get paid to do their job, and you're born into society where you follow structures and structures and structures to be successful. Yeah, and then at the end of the day, well, I'm just doing my job. Well, it's like, well, what is your job? What is it that you're just doing that you're so okay with? And sometimes it happens to be like police officers doing some stuff that they're not comfortable with. Like as a normal human, a police officer a lot of times wouldn't do the things that they're doing, but because they have the badge and they have this honor, it's literally the prison guard experiment. Have you ever heard of the prison guard experiment?
Yes, and my ex-brother-in-law tried to get me to be one time. It would not have worked out for me.
No, exactly. People literally, and I'm guilty of everybody. They literally will fill the role that they're playing within society. And so there's a lot of that going around, the prison guard experiment,
Yeah, because if I had taken that job, the guy that killed my nephew showed up as a prisoner. I would have been his guard. That wouldn't have been good.
Right. Well, man, definitely a good talk. And I really do thank you for asking me to do this. I feel like I've spoken more about like my actual work and my mission with you more than I have with anyone else. So thank you very much for letting me to speak about my work.
You're welcome. You deserve it. I mean, you spoke 3 times at Smithsonian. I mean, you got to know something.
Yeah, I mean, they like it when I talk about skateboards, but then I always end up telling them, hey, you need to follow your dreams, and I'll read a whole bunch of poems, and then I'll play their grand piano, and they're like, do you want to come back next year? Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Well, it's been great having you as a guest, Alexei. We got to do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely. I'll invite you on. Are you podcasting yourself?
No, I am not podcasting. Are you live right now? Is this on your YouTube or?
No, I'm banned on YouTube right now. I like to put out too much truth, man. They got me banned right now.
That's funny. So where's this being held at?
It's going to go on a whole bunch of different places. I can even put it on Spotify as an audio.
Okay.
So I'm not on YouTube right now, but I'm everywhere else.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, is there any way maybe you could send me the raw copy of it then?
Definitely.
I might put it on. I think it'll be okay for me to put on YouTube.
I'd be honored if you did.
Cool. Very cool.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon. And thanks again.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Alexei. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.